This audiobook unlocks the ancient secret that you are not what you think you are. As you listen, you'll unveil the illusion that has kept you bound and discover the infinite creative force that lies just beyond the mirror. The time for your transformation is now. You are energy. Introduction. In the hidden heart of an ancient sanctuary where eternal flames illuminate the spirals of fate, keeper of eternal truth, Timothy Hayes tends the sacred fire. His time-weathered hands move in arcane patterns, weaving shimmering sigils in the air as he prepares the chamber for your initiation. For countless millennia, his bloodline has kept safe a most perilous secret, a truth that, once revealed, cannot be forgotten. The stone walls pulse with a supernatural radiance as Timothy arranges crystalline artifacts in a circle of power. A calm, all-knowing smile crosses his face, for he senses that you, eternal soul, have finally arrived. Whether you stumbled upon these words in a forgotten tome or received them through a dream state, it matters not. What matters is that you are ready to unveil the greatest mystery within yourself. Draw near to me across the thinning barrier of worlds, he whispered from the shadows, his voice a thread of pure magic. What I unveil will shatter everything you believe you are. Some who unveil this truth become mad, while others become boundless. The path you choose depends upon your courage, your ability to see through the illusion. The air thickens with aromatic smoke as Timothy performs his ancient rite, piercing the membrane between dimensions. You believe yourself to be a separate form, a creature made of flesh and bone, a mind separate from all else. But I'm here to unveil the eternal reality. You are not separate. You are energy itself, pure creative force, temporarily dreaming a human form. He traces a final rune in shimmering fire, locking in its magic. Through stories, parables, and practices forged by the ancient masters, you will learn to see through this cosmic deception. With each revelation, another piece of your false self falls away. And when it is gone, you will face a momentous choice: remain within the dream, or become the eternal energy you truly are. The flames rise higher, casting wild patterns upon the stones. If you wish for refuge, close this tome now. But if you wish for ultimate truth, at any price, step forward into the fire of transformation. Because you are not what you think you are. You are energy itself, eternal, infinite, and unhindered by form. The chamber falls silent save for the crackling of the sacred fire. Timothy Hayes, keeper of eternal mystery, extends his hand toward the first doorway of understanding. The moment of your transformation is at hand. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Part 1, The Unveiling, Breaking the Illusion. And Chapter 1, The Mirror Merchant's Revelation. In the bustling markets of ancient Damascus, where spice merchants called their wares and carpet sellers wove tales as intricate as their textiles, there dwelt a peculiar mirror merchant named Christopher Sullivan. His shop, unlike the gleaming emporia of other looking-glass vendors, was dim and filled with mirrors that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Christopher moved with the deliberate grace of one who knew secrets, his weathered hands lovingly arranging mirrors that appeared older than time itself. Those who entered his shop seeking mere vanity found something far more unsettling. For Christopher's mirrors showed not just the surface, but the illusion beneath. "Look closely," he would say to those brave enough to peer into his ancient glasses. "Tell me who you see." And as they gazed, customers would begin to tremble, for the face that looked back was not quite their own. Sometimes it appeared younger, sometimes older, sometimes wearing expressions they had never made. One day a wealthy merchant entered, demanding Christopher's finest mirror. "I wish to see my true self," he declared proudly. Christopher smiled mysteriously and led him to a mirror covered in midnight-colored silk. "Before I unveil this," Christopher warned, "know that your true self may not be what you expect." He pulled away the silk, revealing a mirror that seemed to contain shifting smoke. As the merchant gazed into it, his reflection began to dissolve like morning mist, revealing only empty space where his image should have been. The merchant staggered back in horror. "What sorcery is this? Where is my reflection?" "That is your true reflection," Christopher replied softly. "The self you think you are is like a costume worn by the universe. These mirrors simply show what lies beneath the masquerade." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the first great truth. The solid, continuous self you imagine yourself to be is an illusion. Like a reflection on water, it appears real, but cannot be grasped. To practice this wisdom, sit before a mirror in dim light. Gaze softly at your reflection while breathing slowly. Do not focus on features or flaws. Simply observe. After several minutes, you may notice your face beginning to shift and change. Sometimes it may appear stranger, sometimes familiar in unexpected ways. These glimpses reveal the fluid nature of your supposed self. Remember Christopher's teaching. The face in the mirror is not you, but a temporary arrangement of light and shadow, just as your sense of self is a temporary arrangement of thoughts and memories. The true you is the awareness, watching the reflection, not the reflection itself. As you master this practice, the rigid boundaries of self begin to dissolve, revealing the limitless being you truly are. For in Christopher Sullivan's ancient mirrors, those who looked deeply enough found not themselves, but the infinite gazing back through human eyes. Chapter 2. The Memory Keeper's Paradox. In the labyrinthine depths of Alexandria's greatest library, where ancient scrolls whispered forgotten truths, worked a peculiar archivist named Jessica Martinez. Unlike other guardians who merely preserved texts, Jessica was keeper of the memory chambers, circular rooms where the past itself seemed to dance in the air like golden dust. Her sanctum lay beyond towering shelves, accessed through a door of weathered bronze that opened only for those seeking deeper wisdom. Inside, thousands of crystalline spheres lined the walls, each containing what appeared to be swirling mist. "People believe their memories make them who they are," Jessica would say to seekers who found their way to her, her voice gentle yet charged with ancient power. "But I will show you that memories are like water, ever-changing, never quite what we believe them to be." She demonstrated this truth through an extraordinary ritual. Taking 3 identical spheres from different shelves, she would ask visitors to share their most precious memory. As they spoke, the mist in each sphere would form into scenes from their past, yet each sphere showed the same memory differently. One desperate scholar came seeking to preserve his life's memories perfectly. Jessica placed the spheres before him and bid him recall his childhood home. In the first sphere, appeared a sun-drenched courtyard. In the second, a shadowy interior. And in the third, a garden that had never existed. "But which is real?" he demanded, growing pale. "Which is my true memory?" "All of them, and none," Jessica replied. "Your mind rebuilds the past anew each time you remember it. The self you think continues through time is actually recreated moment by moment, shaped by the present as much as the past." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the second great truth. Your memories, which seem to prove your continuous existence, are more like dreams, fluid, shifting, recreated with each remembering. The solid timeline of your life is an illusion. To practice this wisdom, sit quietly and recall a significant memory. Notice how the details shift as you explore it. What changes when you remember it from different angles? See how your present state colors the past, how each remembering subtly reshapes what was. Remember Jessica's teaching, you are not the sum of your memories, but the unchanging awareness in which all memories arise and dissolve. The true you is the space in which the past dances, not the dance itself. For in Jessica Martinez's Mysterious Spheres, those who looked deeply enough discovered that what they called their past was really just another face of the eternal now, endlessly reflecting itself through the miracle of memory. Chapter 3, The Dream Weaver's Workshop. In the misty mountains of ancient Tibet, where reality bent like morning shadows, dwelt a mysterious dream interpreter named Ashley Rodriguez. Her workshop was unlike any other, a hexagonal chamber carved from living crystal, where multiple dreams could exist simultaneously in the same space. Visitors would find her seated at an elaborate loom made of moonstone and starlight, her fingers dancing through gossamer threads that seemed to contain entire worlds. The air itself shimmered with possibility, and those who entered often found themselves unsure if they were awake or dreaming. "People believe their waking life is solid and dreams are illusion," Ashley would say, her voice echoing strangely, as if coming from multiple directions at once. "But I will show you that both states are equally real, and equally unreal." She demonstrated this through an extraordinary technique. Gesturing visitors to sit upon cushions arranged in a perfect circle, she would weave her fingers through the shimmering threads, causing multiple dream scenes to manifest throughout the chamber. Participants would find themselves simultaneously experiencing several realities. In one corner, they might be flying over mountains, while in another, they sat in childhood homes, all while remaining fully aware in the workshop. A merchant once came seeking to understand the difference between dreams and reality. Ashley seated him in the circle and began her weaving. "Tell me," she asked as he experienced 5 different lives at once, "which of these is real?" "None of them," he declared confidently. "These are obviously dreams, while my normal life is real." Ashley smiled mysteriously. "Are you so certain? When you dream at night, doesn't that reality feel just as solid? And when you wake, doesn't that dream fade like morning mist? What makes you think this real life is any different?" Through this teaching, you begin to understand the third great truth. Your waking consciousness is itself a kind of dream, no more or less real than nighttime visions. All experience is a dance of awareness taking different forms. To practice this wisdom as you fall asleep tonight, hold gentle awareness of the transition between waking and dreaming. Notice how one reality melts into another. During your day, pause occasionally and ask, "Am I dreaming now?" Look for signs that this too might be a dream. Remember Ashley's teaching, you are not the dreamer or the dreamed, but the eternal awareness in which all dreams arise. The true you is the space that holds all possible realities. For in Ashley Rodriguez's crystalline workshop, those who looked deeply enough discovered that all of existence is a grand dream, dreamed by the infinite into countless forms, including the form now reading these words. Chapter 4. The Echo Chamber Oracle. High in the mist-shrouded peaks of ancient Nepal, where thoughts seemed to hang in the air like mountain dew, lived a peculiar cave hermit named Matthew Anderson. His dwelling was no ordinary cavern, but a series of naturally formed chambers where sound behaved in impossible ways, each thought echoing back in countless voices, not quite his own. Matthew had discovered this place after years of wandering, drawn by whispers that seemed to emerge from the rock itself. His hair was wild, and his eyes held the gleam of one who had seen beyond ordinary reality. Yet he moved with the precise grace of a man who had mastered something profound. People believe their thoughts are their own, he would tell the rare seekers who found their way to his cave. But I will show you that every thought is an echo, reverberating through the collective mind of existence. To demonstrate this truth, he would guide visitors through a narrow passage into a perfectly spherical chamber deep within the mountain. Here, when someone spoke their deepest thought, it would return not in their own voice, but in a chorus of countless others who had thought the same thing throughout time. A young monk once came seeking wisdom about the nature of mind. Matthew led him to the chamber and instructed him to voice his most personal fear. When the monk whispered, "I am not worthy," the cave returned his words in 1,000 voices. Men, women, children, ancients, all who had ever felt the same doubt. "But these are my private thoughts," the monk protested, shaken. "How can others know them?" Matthew smiled gently. "There are no private thoughts. Each seems personal, yet rises from the vast ocean of universal mind. We are not thinkers, but listeners, catching echoes of consciousness itself." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the fourth great truth. Your thoughts are not yours, but ripples in an infinite sea of mind. Like waves, they pass through you, but do not belong to you. To practice this wisdom, sit in quiet contemplation and watch your thoughts arise. Notice how each appears fully formed, from where you know not. See if you can catch a thought before it forms. Can you find its source? Can you find the thinker? Remember Matthew's teaching, you are not the generator of thoughts, but the space in which they echo. The true you is the silence between the sounds, the awareness that hears all voices. For in Matthew Anderson's resonant caves, those who listened deeply enough discovered that every thought ever thought still rings through the chambers of existence, and what we call our private mind is really a portal to the infinite chorus of consciousness. Chapter 5, The Shapeshifter's Academy. In the shimmering heat of ancient Egypt's forgotten valleys, where reality rippled like a mirage, stood a mysterious school unlike any other. Here, Master Amanda Walker taught an art so profound it defied nature itself, the sacred science of form transformation. The Academy's limestone walls seemed to subtly shift in the corner of one's eye, and its corridors would sometimes lead to different destinations than they had the day before. But most remarkable were its students, who often appeared as different people from one moment to the next. People believe their physical form is fixed and unchangeable, Amanda would say, her own features flowing like water as she spoke. But I will show you that the body is merely a habit of consciousness, as flexible as thoughts themselves. She demonstrated this truth through an extraordinary method. In the Academy's central courtyard stood a pool of liquid moonlight, its surface perfectly still despite the desert winds. Students would step into its silvery depths and emerge wearing entirely different forms, young becoming old, tall becoming short, even humans wearing the shapes of desert creatures. A wealthy merchant's daughter came seeking to perfect her appearance through this art. Amanda led her to the pool and bid her enter. The girl emerged as a wrinkled crone, then a young boy, then a desert fox, each transformation revealing new aspects of her consciousness. "But which is my true form?" the girl cried in distress, her features still shifting like sand in the wind. "None of them, and all," Amanda replied with infinite gentleness. "Your true nature is the formless awareness that wears all forms. The body you think defines you is just one costume in an infinite wardrobe." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the fifth great truth. Your physical form is not your essence, but a temporary expression of consciousness. Like clothes that can be changed, your body is a vessel, not your identity. To practice this wisdom, stand before a mirror and gaze softly at your reflection. Feel how your awareness extends beyond your physical boundaries. Imagine your form becoming fluid, flowing like water. Notice how your essential nature remains unchanged regardless of appearance. Remember Amanda's teaching. You are not the shape you wear, but the shapeless presence that animates all forms. The true you is the space in which all transformations occur. For in Amanda Walker's mysterious academy, those who looked deeply enough discovered that physical reality is as malleable as dreams, and what we call our body is really just one wave in the ocean of infinite possibility. Chapter 6. The Time Merchant's Paradox. In the shimmering bazaars of ancient Babylon, where sunlight danced through incense smoke and possibility hung thick in the air, there dwelt a peculiar merchant named Joshua Patterson. Unlike the traders of silk and spice, Joshua dealt in something far more precious. He sold moments of time. His shop defied ordinary perception. Hourglasses lined the walls, but the sand within them flowed in impossible directions, sideways, upward, and sometimes in several directions at once. Crystal vessels contained captured sunsets, frozen dawns, and the endless instant between sleeping and waking. People believe time flows like a river, carrying their self from past to future, Joshua would say, his voice somehow reaching ears both moments ago and seconds ahead. But I will show you that time is an illusion, and the you that travels through it does not exist. To demonstrate this truth, he would invite customers to purchase a moment from his collection. A young scribe once came seeking more time for his studies. Joshua reached into an ancient chest and withdrew a glowing amber sphere. "This is the exact moment you entered my shop," he said, holding it up to the light. "Would you like to buy it?" The scribe looked confused. "But that moment is gone. It's in the past." "Is it?" Joshua smiled, breaking the sphere. Instantly, the scribe found himself walking through the shop's entrance again, experiencing the same moment with full awareness. "How can this be?" the scribe gasped. "Which is the real moment, then or now?" "Neither and both," Joshua replied. "Time is not a line, but a point. and you are not a traveler moving through it, but the eternal space in which all moments dance. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the sixth great truth. Linear time is an illusion of consciousness, and your sense of being a continuous entity moving through it is the grandest illusion of all. To practice this wisdom, choose any ordinary moment in your day. Notice how your mind creates past and future around it, yet your actual experience is always now. Watch how memory and anticipation construct the illusion of a timeline, while awareness remains ever present. Remember Joshua's teaching. You are not the imagined entity traveling through time, but the timeless presence in which all moments appear. The true you is the eternal now that never begins or ends. For in Joshua Patterson's mysterious shop, those who looked deeply enough discovered that all moments exist simultaneously in the infinite present, and what we call our journey through time is really just consciousness dancing with its own reflections. Chapter 7. The Emotion Alchemist's Laboratory. Deep beneath the sacred mountains of ancient Tibet, where crystalline caves glowed with otherworldly light, lay a mysterious laboratory unlike any other. Here, the renowned emotion alchemist Stephanie Collins conducted her extraordinary work, transforming the very essence of human feelings. The laboratory's walls were lined with transparent vessels containing swirling, luminescent energies, joy dancing like golden light, anger burning deep crimson, sadness flowing in subtle blue waves. Each emotion existed in its pure form, untethered from any individual. People believe their feelings belong to them, Stephanie would say, her hands moving through the colored energies like a conductor before an orchestra. But I will show you that emotions are universal forces flowing through the space we call self. To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary process. In the heart of her laboratory stood a circular chamber of pure crystal. Here, visitors would experience their most personal feelings, separated from their sense of self, witnessing emotions as cosmic energies merely passing through awareness. A grieving mother once came, consumed by sorrow. Stephanie guided her into the crystal chamber and slowly extracted the blue essence of grief from her heart. The woman watched in wonder as her most private pain swirled before her, merging with an ocean of ancestral sorrow that had flowed through countless hearts through time. "But this suffering felt so uniquely mine," the mother whispered, touching the crystal wall where her grief danced with the universal current of all human loss. "The feeling is real," Stephanie replied gently, "but the mine is illusion. Emotions are like weather patterns in consciousness. They move through us, but do not belong to us." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the seventh great truth. Your feelings are not personal possessions, but universal energies, experiencing themselves through the space of your awareness. To practice this wisdom, sit quietly and allow whatever emotion is present to arise fully. Rather than labeling it as my anger or my joy, observe it as pure energy moving through awareness. Notice how the feeling changes when you stop claiming it as personal. Remember Stephanie's teaching, you are not the generator of emotions, but the open space in which universal feelings flow. The true you is the unchanging awareness that witnesses all emotional weather. For in Stephanie Collins' luminous laboratory, those who looked deeply enough discovered that every human feeling is a strand in the infinite tapestry of consciousness. and what we call our emotional life is really just the universe experiencing itself through countless hearts. Chapter 8, The Identity Thief's Confession. In the shadow-draped streets of ancient Constantinople, where masks and mysteries mingled freely, there lived a master of deception named David Richardson. Unlike common thieves who stole valuables, David practiced an art far more profound. He stole identities not through trickery, but through the complete dissolution of his own self. His hidden sanctuary lay beneath an abandoned temple, walls adorned with thousands of masks that seemed to whisper ancient secrets. But these were no ordinary disguises. Each represented a complete identity he had embodied through his mastery of emptiness. The greatest deception, David would say to those who found their way to his underground chamber, is not pretending to be someone else, but believing you are someone at all. To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary technique. Before a wall of polished obsidian, he would stand completely still until his features began to blur and shift, his very essence becoming fluid as water. Visitors watch in wonder as he transformed not just his appearance but his entire being, becoming a merchant, then a beggar, then a sage, each identity as authentic as the last. A young nobleman once sought David's art, hoping to learn the ultimate disguise. David led him to the obsidian wall and bid him watch. "Observe closely," he said, his form beginning to ripple. "I will show you my greatest secret." But instead of taking on a new identity, David's presence seemed to dissolve completely, becoming an empty space in which all possible identities danced. "But where have you gone?" the nobleman gasped, seeing only himself reflected in the dark glass. "Nowhere," came David's voice from everywhere and nowhere. "I have simply stopped pretending to be someone. In perfect emptiness, one can become anyone, because you realize there never was a someone to begin with." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the eighth great truth. Your sense of being a fixed identity is the deepest illusion, and true freedom comes from dissolving this final disguise. To practice this wisdom, sit before a mirror in dim light. Gaze softly at your reflection until the familiar features begin to blur. Don't try to become someone else. Instead, let go of being anyone at all. Notice how your true nature is the empty awareness in which all identities arise. Remember David's teaching. You are not any of the masks you wear, but the limitless potential that wears all masks. The true you is the no one who can become anyone. For in David Richardson's mysterious sanctuary, those who looked deeply enough discovered that personal identity is the ultimate illusion, and what we call our self is really just consciousness playing an infinite game of pretend. Chapter 9, The Boundary Walker's Journey. In the misty valleys between ancient Tibet and Nepal, where reality itself grew thin, there dwelt a mysterious guide named Melissa Torres. Unlike ordinary pathfinders who led travelers through physical terrain, Melissa specialized in guiding people through the places where the very boundaries of existence dissolved. Her sanctuary perched on the edge of a sacred mountain, where waterfalls flowed upward and clouds took solid form. Here, the laws of nature bent like reeds in the wind, and the line between self and other became as permeable as morning fog. "People believe they end at their skin," Melissa would say, her form sometimes seeming to merge with the mists around her. "But I will show you that all boundaries are illusions drawn in the infinite canvas of consciousness." To demonstrate this truth, she would guide seekers along hidden paths where physical reality revealed its fluid nature. Walking beside a crystal lake, travelers would see their reflections step out to join them. Passing through ancient stone gates, they would find themselves simultaneously on both sides. A warrior once sought her wisdom, proud of his carefully guarded boundaries. Melissa led him to a cave, where shadows danced of their own accord. "Tell me," she asked as their forms began to blur together in the dim light, "where do you end and the universe begins?" The warrior reached to draw his sword, but found his arm passing through solid stone. "How can this be?" he gasped, watching his flesh merge with the cave wall. "The boundary between self and world exists only in thought," Melissa smiled, her voice coming from everywhere at once. "When you release that thought, you discover your true nature has no edges." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the ninth great truth. All boundaries are arbitrary constructs of mind, and your true self extends infinitely in all directions. To practice this wisdom, sit quietly and feel the apparent boundary of your body. Notice how breath moves freely across this supposed border. Experience how sounds, sensations, and awareness flow without obstruction through the space you call me. Let your sense of self become as permeable as mist. Remember Melissa's teaching: you are not contained within any boundary, but are the boundless awareness in which all experiences arise. The true you has no edges to defend. For in Melissa Torres' mystical borderlands, those who walked far enough discovered that all boundaries dissolve in the light of pure consciousness, and what we call our separate self is really just the infinite playing at having limits. Chapter 10: The Witness Stone Circle. High in the mist-shrouded hills of ancient Britain, where megalithic stones pierced the veil between worlds, dwelt an enigmatic elder named Daniel Murphy. Unlike the druids who practiced ritual magic, Daniel was keeper of a far deeper mystery, the art of pure witnessing. The stone circle he tended was unlike any other. Each towering megalith had been carved from crystals that seemed to capture and reflect not just light, but consciousness itself. In the center stood the witness stone, a crystal of such clarity that those who gazed into it saw not their reflection, but the awareness behind their eyes. "People mistake the movie of their life for who they are," Daniel would say, his voice carrying the weight of ancient knowing, "but I will show you the unchanging screen upon which all experience plays." To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary ceremony. As the sun set, visitors would sit before different stones in the circle, each crystal revealing a distinct aspect of their personality, memories, thoughts, emotions, sensations. But when they finally faced the central witness stone, something remarkable occurred. A troubled seeker once came, believing himself lost in the chaos of his mind. Daniel guided him stone by stone through the circle, watching his visitor's eyes widen as each facet of his personality was revealed as merely another passing show. "But if all these parts of me are just experiences," the seeker asked, approaching the witness stone, "who is the one watching?" "Look deeply," Daniel replied, his voice barely a whisper. "You are not any of the scenes in the movie. You are the unchanging awareness in which the whole story unfolds." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 10th great truth. Your true nature is not any experience, but the eternal witness to all experience. To practice this wisdom, sit quietly and notice each aspect of experience: thoughts, emotions, sensations, perceptions. Rather than identifying with these changing elements, rest as the unchanging awareness that observes them. Notice how this witnessing presence remains constant while all else flows by. Remember Daniel's teaching. You are not the characters in your life story, but the consciousness in which all stories arise. The true you is the eternal witness, untouched by the dramas it observes. For in Daniel Murphy's sacred circle, those who looked deeply enough discovered that behind every experience shines the light of pure awareness, and what we call our personal self is really just another scene in the cosmic play witnessed by our timeless essence. Part 2, The Mastery and Aligning with Source. Chapter 11, The Lightning Caller's Secret. Upon the highest peak of the celestial mountains, where storm clouds gathered like thoughts in an awakening mind, dwelt a remarkable woman known as Nicole Harper. Unlike common weather seers who merely predicted storms, Nicole had mastered the art of dancing with lightning itself, understanding the profound truth that consciousness and electrical energy were one and the same force. Her sanctuary was a copper-domed observatory, perched impossibly between earth and sky, where metallic spirals drew down the very essence of thunderstorms. Here, suspended between realms, she taught those brave enough to ascend that thoughts were simply lightning of the mind. People believe consciousness and energy are separate, Nicole would say, her hair floating in the electric air. But I will show you that they are the same force, expressing through different forms. To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary method. During the heart of a storm, she would guide visitors to stand upon a crystal platform, their bodies becoming living conductors of both lightning and thought. A skeptical philosopher once braved the ascent, seeking to understand the nature of mind. Nicole led him to the platform as thunder shook the mountain peaks. Observe closely, she instructed, raising her hands to the roiling clouds. As lightning struck her form instead of harm, it created a visible network of light that matched exactly the pattern of her thoughts. How can mere electricity mirror consciousness, the philosopher gasped, watching thoughts and lightning dance as one. Because they were never different. Nicole smiled, her voice harmonizing with the thunder. Every thought is a bolt of lightning in the mind, every lightning bolt a thought in the sky. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 11th great truth. Consciousness and energy are one force, and mastery of one grants mastery of both. To practice this wisdom, sit quietly during a storm. Feel the electric potential in the air as identical to the potential in your thoughts. Let your consciousness expand to merge with the atmospheric energy around you. Notice how thoughts create subtle lightning, and lightning carries subtle thoughts. Remember Nicole's teaching. You are not separate from the energy that animates the universe, but are that very force taking form as awareness. The true you is pure energy, expressing as consciousness. For in Nicole Harper's mountaintop sanctuary, those who looked deeply enough discovered that mind and lightning are one power, and what we call our separate awareness is really just the universe's infinite energy, knowing itself through human form. Chapter 12, The Frequency Healer's Clinic. In the crystal caverns beneath ancient Alexandria, where harmonies echoed through time itself, practiced a remarkable healer named Elizabeth Bennett. Unlike traditional physicians who worked with herbs and potions, Elizabeth had mastered the art of healing through pure sound, understanding that all existence was simply energy vibrating at different frequencies. Her healing chamber was a cathedral of crystalline chambers, each cut to resonate at precise frequencies. Here, surrounded by singing stones, she demonstrated how every condition of body and mind was nothing more than patterns of vibration waiting to be retuned. People see illness and health as solid states, Elizabeth would say, her voice harmonizing with the crystal tones around her. But I will show you that all experience is simply song, waiting to be recomposed. To demonstrate this truth, she created an extraordinary method. Patients would lie in a crystal basin while she arranged tuning forks of pure celestial metal around them. As each fork struck its note, the patient's form would become translucent, revealing the music of their being. A wealthy merchant came seeking cure for an affliction no doctor could name. Elizabeth positioned him in the resonance chamber as the crystals began their song. Listen deeply, she instructed, striking a pure tone that made his very atoms visible as dancing light. Your disease is simply a discord in your symphony. How can physical ailments be mere sound, he asked, watching his solid form dissolve into patterns of frequency. Because matter itself is frozen music, Elizabeth smiled, adjusting the tones until his scattered harmonies reformed into perfect health. Every cell sings its own note in the universal chorus. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 12th great truth. All existence is vibration, and mastery of frequency grants mastery of reality itself. To practice this wisdom, sit in perfect silence until you perceive the subtle sounds of your own being. Notice how thoughts, emotions, and sensations each have their own distinctive tone. Learn to tune your inner symphony by adjusting these frequencies through focused attention. Remember Elizabeth's teaching. You are not a solid form, but a complex harmony of infinite frequencies. The true you is pure music expressing through temporary patterns of song. For in Elizabeth Bennet's Crystal Clinic, those who listened deeply enough discovered that all reality was living music, and what we call our separate existence is really just one note in the cosmic symphony that sings creation into being. Chapter 13, The Light Weaver's Art. In the luminous caves beneath the Himalayas, where rainbow crystals caught and danced with living light, worked a remarkable artisan named John Crawford. Unlike common painters who used pigments and brushes, John had mastered the art of painting with pure light itself, understanding that consciousness was the fundamental creative force of reality. His studio was a vast chamber where crystalline walls captured and multiplied every photon, creating an ever-shifting canvas of pure radiance. Here, surrounded by living colors that responded to thought itself, he taught students that creativity and consciousness were one and the same power. People believe art requires physical tools, John would say, his fingers trailing streams of golden light through the air. But I will show you that consciousness itself is the only brush you need. To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary technique. Students would stand before blank crystal walls, while John taught them to extend their awareness into the light itself, using pure intention to weave colors into impossible forms. A frustrated artist once sought his wisdom, having lost faith in traditional methods. John guided her to face an empty wall as rainbow light danced around them. Close your eyes, he instructed, and see that the light painting your inner visions is the same light that creates the outer world. When she opened her eyes, her gasped. Her thoughts had become visible as shifting mandalas of living color on the crystal surface. How can mere imagination affect physical light, she asked, watching her inner visions take form in radiant reality. Because consciousness and creativity are one force. John smiled, weaving dragons of light that flew through the chamber. The universe itself is nothing but imagination made visible. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 13th great truth. Consciousness is the fundamental creative force, and mastery of awareness grants mastery of manifestation. To practice this wisdom, sit in a sunlit room and imagine the light responding to your thoughts. See the radiance as an extension of your own awareness. Notice how your attention itself begins to shape and direct the flow of light. Remember John's teaching, you are not separate from the creative force that shapes reality, but are that very power taking form as individual awareness. The true you is pure creativity expressing through temporary patterns of light. For in John Crawford's luminous studio, those who looked deeply enough discovered that all reality was living art, and what we call our separate existence is really just one brushstroke in the cosmic masterpiece that paints itself into being through our collective imagination. Before we get into the next chapter, you can download a free ebook version of this audiobook using the link in the pinned comment below this video. Chapter 14, The Magnetic Sage's Demonstration. In a hidden valley between the ancient peaks of Tibet, where stones defied gravity and water flowed upward in spiraling streams, dwelt a remarkable sage known as Heather Foster. Unlike traditional mystics who taught through words alone, Heather had mastered the art of revealing invisible forces through impossible demonstrations. Her sanctuary was a perfectly circular grove where metallic stones hovered in intricate geometric patterns, dancing to the subtle currents of thought itself. Here, surrounded by floating evidence of unseen power, she taught visitors that mental focus and magnetic force were expressions of the same universal law. People believe physical forces and mental intention are separate, Heather would say, as she walked between the floating stones. But I will show you that focused thought creates fields as real as any magnet. To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary method. Visitors would stand in the center of her grove while she taught them to extend their awareness into visible waves that could lift the hovering stones. A doubtful merchant once visited her valley seeking proof that thoughts could affect physical reality. Heather positioned him among the floating rocks as silver mists swirled around them. Release your certainty about what is possible, she instructed, creating a rippling field that caused nearby stones to orbit his form like planets around a sun. How can mere thoughts move solid matter, he asked, watching in amazement as his own tentative focus began to influence the stone's dance. Because intention and attraction are one power, Heather smiled, conducting the floating rocks like a cosmic orchestra. Every thought creates a magnetic field in the fabric of reality itself. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 14th great truth. Focused consciousness generates real force fields, and mastery of attention grants mastery of attraction and repulsion. To practice this wisdom, sit quietly with a small object before you. Feel your attention as a tangible field extending from your awareness. Notice how your focused intention creates subtle attractions and repulsions in the space around you. Remember Heather's teaching, you are not separate from the magnetic forces that shape reality, but are that very power taking form as conscious awareness. The true you is pure attractive force expressing through temporary patterns of intention. For in Heather Foster's floating valley, those who felt deeply enough discovered that all reality was living magnetism, and what we call our separate will is really just one current in the cosmic force field that draws all possibilities into manifestation through the perfect law of attraction. Chapter 15. The Energy Tracker's Hunt. In the mist-shrouded forests of ancient Ceylon, where golden threads of life force shimmered between every leaf and creature, dwelt a remarkable tracker named Jason Morris. Unlike traditional hunters who pursued physical prey, Jason had mastered the art of tracking the invisible energy patterns that connected all living things. His hunting grounds were the sacred groves where the veils between worlds grew thin, allowing those with trained eyes to perceive the luminous web binding all existence. Here, surrounded by visible strands of universal consciousness, he taught students to see beyond the illusion of separation. People believe tracking means following footprints, Jason would say, his eyes tracing patterns others couldn't see. But I will show you that all beings leave trails of light that never fade. To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary method. Students would sit motionless in the grove, while Jason taught them to perceive the golden threads connecting everything, from the smallest insect to the tallest tree. A skilled traditional hunter once sought his wisdom frustrated by prey that seemed to vanish without trace. Jason guided him to a moss-covered stone as twilight deepened around them. "Close your outer eyes," he instructed, touching a glowing strand that made nearby birds burst into song. "The connections you seek are already within your vision." "How can invisible bonds reveal what I track?" asked the hunter, gasping as his perception shifted to reveal a living web of light connecting every being in the forest. "Because separation is illusion." Jason smiled, plucking a radiant thread that made flowers bloom in perfect circles. "All creatures are nodes in one infinite pattern." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 15th great truth. Everything is connected in a living network of consciousness, and mastery of perception reveals the unified field of being. To practice this wisdom, sit in nature and soften your gaze until the boundaries between things begin to blur. Feel the subtle connections between yourself and your surroundings. Notice how your attention can follow these invisible threads of relationship. Remember Jason's teaching, you are not separate from the web of life, but are that very network taking form as individual awareness. The true you is pure connection, expressing through temporary patterns of relationship. For in Jason Morris's luminous forest, those who looked deeply enough discovered that all reality was living relationship, and what we call our separate existence is really just one intersection in the cosmic web that weaves all beings into unity through the eternal dance of interconnection. Chapter 16, The Vibration Tuner's Workshop. In the crystalline caverns beneath ancient Lemuria, where sound became visible and harmonies took physical form, dwelt a remarkable frequency master named Tiffany Hughes. Unlike traditional musicians who played instruments, Tiffany had mastered the art of adjusting the very vibrations of reality itself through pure resonance. Her workshop was a dodecahedral chamber where sacred geometries amplified and transformed sound into tangible waves of possibility. Here, surrounded by singing crystals that responded to the subtlest shifts in consciousness, she taught students that all existence was nothing but vibration in various forms. "People believe reality is solid and fixed," Tiffany would say, as ripples of violet soundlight danced around her. "But I will show you that everything is frequency, waiting to be tuned." To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary technique. Students would stand within nested rings of crystalline bowls, while Tiffany taught them to match their own vibrational signature to any desired reality. A troubled mystic once sought her wisdom, unable to manifest his visions. Tiffany positioned him at the chamber's focal point as harmonics shimmered in geometric patterns around them. "Feel the note of your current state," she instructed, drawing forth a tone that made his entire being resonate. "Now listen for the frequency of what you wish to become." "How can matching a sound change reality itself?" he asked, watching in wonder as his vibration began shifting the patterns of light throughout the chamber. "Because everything is music," Tiffany smiled, conducting reality like a cosmic symphony. "The universe itself is nothing but songs remembering how to sing themselves." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 16th great truth. All existence is vibration, and mastery of your own frequency grants mastery of manifestation. To practice this wisdom, sit in perfect stillness and feel the subtle humming of your being. Notice how your consciousness can tune itself like an instrument. Begin to match the frequencies of what you wish to experience. Remember Tiffany's teaching. You are not separate from the symphony of existence, but are that very music taking form as individual awareness. The true you is pure vibration, expressing through temporary patterns of resonance. For in Tiffany Hughes's harmonic chamber, those who listened deeply enough discovered that all reality was living music, and what we call our separate self is really just one note in the cosmic song that sings itself into being through the eternal dance of frequency and form. Chapter 17, The Current Rider's Journey. Along the sacred waters of an ancient river that flowed impossibly upward through mountain peaks dwelt a remarkable navigator known as Justin Blake. Unlike traditional sailors who fought against nature's forces, Justin had mastered the art of perfect surrender to the river's will, becoming one with its flowing consciousness. His vessel was carved from living crystal that hummed in harmony with water's song. Here, suspended between earth and sky on a river that defied natural law, he taught seekers that resistance creates the illusion of separate self, while surrender reveals our true nature as pure flow. "People believe mastery means controlling forces," Justin would say, as his crystal boat danced through impossible currents. "But I will show you that true power comes from becoming the flow itself." To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary method. Students would stand at the crystalline helm, while Justin taught them to dissolve their perceived boundaries until they merged with the river's consciousness. A proud warrior once sought his wisdom, frustrated by his inability to bend life to his will. Justin guided him to the bow as they approached a massive waterfall that spiraled upward into the clouds. "Release your grip on what should be," he instructed, as their vessel began ascending the liquid spiral. "Feel how the current already knows where to carry you." "How can surrendering control lead to mastery?" asked the warrior, gasping as his awareness expanded to encompass the entire flowing river. "Because you were never separate from the flow." Justin smiled, becoming translucent as water moved through his form. "The current of life is what you truly are." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 17th great truth. All existence is flowing energy, and surrender to this current reveals your true nature as the flow itself. To practice this wisdom, sit beside moving water and feel its natural rhythm. Allow your breath to match its pace. Notice how your resistance creates the feeling of separation, while surrender reveals your unity with all flowing things. Remember Justin's teaching. You are not separate from the universal current, but are that very flow-taking form as individual awareness. The true you is pure movement, expressing through temporary patterns of energy. For in Justin Blake's Impossible River, those who surrendered deeply enough discovered that all reality was living current, and what we call our separate will is really just one eddy in the cosmic flow that carries all possibilities to their perfect expression through the eternal dance of surrender. Chapter 18, The Field Walker's Revelation. In the shimmering meadows of ancient Hyperborea, where thoughts became visible as colored mists dancing through the air, dwelt a remarkable field explorer named Michel Garrett. Unlike traditional shepherds who tended physical flocks, Michel had mastered the art of shepherding consciousness itself through the living tapestry of universal mind. Her domain was a mysterious valley where human thoughts manifested as luminous clouds that merged and transformed in endless patterns. Here, surrounded by the visible interplay of all minds, she taught seekers that individual consciousness was merely a localized expression of one infinite field. People believe thoughts are private possessions, Michel would say, as rainbow-hued ideas swirled around her like autumn leaves. But I will show you that all minds are waves in one vast ocean. To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary method. Visitors would lie among the thought mists, while Michel taught them to expand their awareness until individual mental boundaries dissolved into the unified field. A lonely sage once sought her wisdom, believing himself isolated in his own consciousness. Michel guided him to a circle of prismatic flowers that bloomed in response to mental activity. Watch how your seemingly personal thoughts affect every blossom, she instructed, as his contemplation created ripples of illuminated petals spreading outward. Now feel how the field's movements flow through you. How can separate minds be one consciousness, he asked, marveling as his awareness began merging with the meadow's collective dreaming. Because boundaries are imagination, Michel smiled, her form becoming translucent as thought mists flowed through her. The field dreams itself into believing it is many. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 18th great truth. All minds are expressions of one infinite consciousness, and true wisdom comes from recognizing your nature as that unified field. To practice this wisdom, sit in stillness and feel the space in which thoughts arise. Notice how mental boundaries are themselves just thoughts. Allow your awareness to expand beyond personal limits into the vast field of shared consciousness. Remember Michel's teaching, you are not separate from universal mind, but are that very awareness taking form as individual experience. The true you is pure consciousness expressing through temporary patterns of thought. For in Michel Garrett's luminous meadow, those who opened themselves deeply enough discovered that all reality was living awareness, and what we call our separate mind is really just one ripple in the cosmic field that dreams itself into infinite forms through the eternal dance of consciousness. Chapter 19, The Power Plant's Gardener. In the hidden valley of the eternal spring, where ancient trees whispered secrets of creation, dwelt a remarkable mystical gardener named Ryan Cooper. Unlike ordinary cultivators who tended only physical plants, Ryan had mastered the art of growing possibilities directly from the fertile soil of consciousness itself. His garden was an impossible paradise where flowers bloomed in patterns matching his thoughts, and fruits ripened according to the quality of his presence. Here, amid beds of luminous plants that responded to pure intention, he taught seekers that all life was simply energy taking form through focused awareness. People believe growing things requires physical effort, Ryan would say, as silver-petaled flowers spiraled up from bare earth at his feet. But I will show you that all creation flows from the gardener's energetic state. To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary technique. Students would stand in circles of sacred soil, while Ryan taught them to direct life force through pure intention, watching as their energy state manifested instantly as living growth. A doubtful herbalist once sought his wisdom, frustrated that her plants wouldn't thrive, despite perfect physical care. Ryan led her to a patch of earth that seemed to pulse with invisible potential. "Close your eyes and feel yourself as pure, nurturing presence," he instructed, as tender shoots began emerging in response to her expanding awareness. "The plants respond not to what you do, but to what you are." "How can my state of being affect physical growth?" she asked, watching in wonder, as her relaxing consciousness caused flowers to unfurl in waves around them. "Because you are the garden," Ryan smiled, his form seeming to merge with the verdant life surrounding them. "All growing things are expressions of one creative force." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 19th great truth. All manifestation flows from your energetic state, and mastery comes from embodying the creative presence you wish to express. To practice this wisdom, sit with a plant and feel the life force you share. Notice how your energy affects its vitality. Allow yourself to become pure, nurturing presence, watching how reality responds to your state of being. Remember Ryan's teaching: you are not separate from what you wish to create, but are that very creative force taking form as individual awareness. The true you is pure life force expressing through temporary patterns of growth. For in Ryan Cooper's miraculous garden, those who opened themselves deeply enough discovered that all reality was living creation, and what we call our separate self is really just one bloom in the cosmic garden that grows itself into infinite forms through the eternal dance of energy and intention. Chapter 20, The Energy Architect's Blueprint. In the crystalline chambers beneath an ancient mountain temple, where geometric patterns of light danced across translucent walls, dwelt a remarkable builder known as Amber Stevens. Unlike ordinary architects who worked with stone and wood, Amber had mastered the art of constructing reality itself from the raw material of vibrating energy. Her workshop was an impossible space where architectural forms emerged spontaneously from pure intention, and structures rearranged themselves according to the resonance of consciousness. Here, amid floating blueprints drawn in lines of living light, she taught seekers that all physical reality was simply crystallized thought. People believe creation requires physical materials, Amber would say, as geometric forms materialized and dissolved around her like dream architecture. But I will show you that all form emerges from vibrational patterns. To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary method. Students would stand within a dodecahedron of humming crystal, while Amber taught them to project their consciousness into sacred geometric patterns, watching as reality reshaped itself to match their inner blueprints. A frustrated stonemason once sought her wisdom, unable to manifest his grandest visions. Amber guided him to a chamber where the walls rippled like liquid geometry. "See how reality already flows in perfect patterns," she instructed, as architectural forms emerge from the crystalline matrix. Your role is not to force creation, but to align with the underlying blueprint or sees. How can mere thought patterns shape solid matter, he asked, watching in awe as his mental geometries manifested in graceful arches of light. Because matter is frozen music, Amber smiled, her form becoming a living lattice of sacred patterns. All structure is vibration, taking form through conscious design. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 20th great truth. All reality is crystallized thought pattern, and mastery comes from aligning your consciousness with the sacred geometries of creation. To practice this wisdom, visualize perfect geometric forms: sphere, cube, pyramid. Feel how these patterns resonate in your awareness. Allow your consciousness to become pure architectural intention, watching how reality responds to your inner blueprint. Remember Amber's teaching: you are not separate from what you create, but are that very creative force taking form as individual awareness. The true you is pure pattern expressing through temporary structures of matter. For in Amber Stevens's geometric sanctuary, those who aligned themselves deeply enough discovered that all reality was living architecture, and what we call solid matter is really just crystallized consciousness building itself into infinite forms through the eternal dance of sacred design. Part 3, the manifestation commanding your reality. Chapter 21, the Void Walker's initiation. In the sacred caverns beneath Mount Emptiness, where reality itself seemed to thin and dissolve, dwelt a remarkable dimensional guide named Brian Kelly. Unlike ordinary cave guides who led travelers through physical passages, Brian had mastered the art of navigating the terrifying spaces between existence and nothingness. His domain was an impossible cavern where the walls breathed and shifted, sometimes vanishing entirely to reveal the vast nothingness that cradles all creation. Here, amid chambers that defied comprehension, he guided seekers through the ultimate initiation, the complete dissolution of the self. People cling desperately to their sense of being someone, Brian would say, as the cavern walls rippled like dark water around him. But I will show you the liberation that comes when that illusion dissolves. To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary ritual. Initiates would enter a perfectly spherical chamber where all reference points gradually disappeared, leaving them suspended in pure awareness. A terrified mystic once sought his wisdom, haunted by glimpses of his own non-existence. Brian led him to the deepest chamber, where even thought itself seemed to evaporate. Let yourself become as empty as this space, he instructed, as the walls of reality began to fade. What you fear, losing, was never truly yours. How can I exist without being someone? The mystic asked, his voice trembling as his sense of self began dissolving into the void. You cannot cease to be. Brian smiled, his form becoming transparent as the darkness deepened. For your true nature was always this endless space. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 21st great truth. All identity is borrowed from the void, and true freedom comes from surrendering the illusion of being a separate self. To practice this wisdom, sit in darkness and feel the space in which your sense of self appears. Notice how personal identity is itself just another appearance in boundless awareness. Allow yourself to rest as that which remains when all else dissolves. Remember Brian's teaching. You are not the temporary self that fears dissolution, but are that very emptiness taking form as individual experience. The true you is the void expressing through temporary patterns of existence. Or in Brian Kelly's mysterious cavern, those who surrendered deeply enough discovered that all reality was living emptiness, and what we call our separate self is really just a ripple in the cosmic void that dreams itself into infinite forms through the eternal dance of being and non-being. Chapter 22. The Reality Hacker's Code. In the shimmering temple of infinite patterns, where symbols of creation danced on walls of liquid light, dwelt a remarkable reality scribe named Amy Richardson. Unlike ordinary scribes who recorded events after they occurred, Amy had mastered the art of writing new possibilities directly into the fabric of existence itself. Her sanctuary was an impossible library where glowing symbols rearranged themselves continuously, each pattern containing codes that could reshape the matrix of experience. Here, amid floating scrolls, inscribed with the universe's own language, she taught seekers that all reality was simply information waiting to be rewritten. People believe they must accept the world as it appears, Amy would say, as golden symbols flowed from her fingertips to alter the room's architecture. But I will show you how to access the underlying code of creation, ye be contao. To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary technique. Students would sit before walls of cascading light script, while Amy taught them to recognize the subtle patterns that governed reality, watching as their awareness began to decode existence itself. A frustrated oracle once sought her wisdom, unable to change the future she foresaw. Amy guided her to a chamber where reality's raw code shimmered like a living tapestry. See how each symbol contains infinite possibility, she instructed, as the oracle's understanding caused ripples through the pattern field. Your role is not to force change, but to edit the story at its source. How can mere symbols alter physical reality? The oracle asked, watching in wonder as her shifting awareness caused the chamber to reconfigure itself. Because existence is information. Amy smiled, her form becoming pure living script. All experience is code expressing through conscious interpretation. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 22nd great truth. All reality is programmable pattern, and mastery comes from recognizing and rewriting the symbols that shape experience. To practice this wisdom, observe the world as pure information. Notice how your perception automatically decodes reality's patterns. Allow yourself to become the space where the universal code reveals itself, watching how reality responds to your deepening recognition. Remember Amy's teaching, you are not separate from what you perceive, but are that very code taking form as individual awareness. The true you is pure pattern expressing through temporary configurations of information. For in Amy Richardson's symbolic sanctuary, those who understood deeply enough discovered that all reality was living language, and what we call solid existence is really just cosmic code, writing itself into infinite forms through the eternal dance of pattern and possibility. Chapter 23, The Probability Weaver's Loom. In the mist-shrouded valley of infinite threads, where ribbons of possibility shimmered like aurora in the ancient air, dwelt a remarkable weaver known as Kevin Foster. Unlike ordinary weavers who worked with wool and silk, Kevin had mastered the art of weaving timelines themselves from the raw threads of potential futures. His workshop was an impossible loom where strands of destiny intertwined and separated like living rivers of light, each thread containing a different version of what might be. Here, amid floating shuttles that moved of their own accord, he taught seekers that all futures existed simultaneously in an eternal tapestry of now. People believe they must choose their path, Kevin would say, as timeline threads danced between his fingers like liquid starlight. But I will show you that the chooser itself is the final illusion to release. To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary method. Students would sit before the probability loom, while Kevin taught them to surrender their grip on being the weaver, watching as reality naturally selected its most harmonious pattern. A desperate fortune-teller once sought his wisdom, tormented by seeing too many possible futures. Kevin guided her to a chamber where reality's threads formed a living mandala of possibility. "See how the patterns already know their perfect flow," he instructed, as timeline streams merged and diverged like cosmic rivers. "Your role is not to control the weaving, but to allow the tapestry to reveal itself." "How can futures manifest without someone choosing?" she asked, watching in wonder as her surrender caused probability streams to naturally align. "Because the universe already knows its dance," Kevin smiled, his form becoming a nexus of converging timelines. "All possibilities are already woven into the eternal now." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 23rd great truth. All futures exist simultaneously, and mastery comes from releasing the illusion of being the one who chooses. Thus, to practice this wisdom, observe how each moment contains infinite potential threads. Notice how your attachment to choosing creates resistance to natural flow. Allow yourself to become the space where all possibilities dance, watching how reality weaves itself when you release the need to be the weaver. Remember Kevin's teaching: you are not separate from what unfolds, but are that very unfolding, expressing through temporary patterns of experience. The true you is pure possibility expressing through the eternal dance of probability. For in Kevin Foster's temporal sanctuary, those who surrendered deeply enough discovered that all reality was living potential, and what we call the future is really just infinite possibility, weaving itself into form through the sacred dance of destiny's loom. Chapter 24. The Manifestation Master's Studio. In the ethereal city of infinite forms, where thought and matter danced as one, dwelt a remarkable manifestation artist named Rachel Morrison. Unlike ordinary craftswomen who shaped clay or carved stone, Rachel had mastered the art of materializing pure consciousness directly into physical form. Her studio was an impossible chamber where objects shimmered in and out of existence like dewdrops in morning sun, each manifestation arising spontaneously from the field of pure potential. Here, amid floating creations that appeared and dissolved like dreams made solid, she taught seekers that all reality manifests effortlessly when there is no someone trying to control the process. "People believe they must force their will upon the world," Rachel would say, as golden butterflies materialized from the air around her. "But I will show you how creation flows naturally when the Creator steps aside." To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary approach. Students would enter a mirrored dome where their thoughts instantly took physical form, but only when they completely released the intention to manifest. A frustrated alchemist once sought her wisdom, unable to transmute base metals despite years of effort. Rachel guided him to a chamber where reality itself seemed to breathe with creative potential. See how your striving creates resistance, she instructed as his releasing breath spontaneously crystallized into perfect gold. The universe manifests through you, not from you. How can anything manifest without focused intention, he asked, watching in wonder as his surrendered awareness caused objects to naturally emerge and dissolve. Because creation is the universe's nature, Rachel smiled, her form becoming translucent as reality flowed through her. All manifestation happens by itself when we stop trying to be the doer. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 24th great truth. All creation arises spontaneously, and mastery comes from releasing the illusion of being the creator. To practice this wisdom, observe how reality constantly manifests without effort. Notice how your attempting to control actually blocks natural creation. Allow yourself to become the space where manifestation happens effortlessly, watching how reality shapes itself when you release the need to be the shaper. Remember Rachel's teaching, you are not separate from what appears, but are that very appearing, expressing through temporary forms. The true you is pure creative potential, expressing through the eternal dance of manifestation. For in Rachel Morrison's mystical studio, those who surrendered deeply enough discovered that all reality was living creation, and what we call manifestation is really just infinite potential taking form through the sacred dance of being and becoming. Chapter 25, The Synchronicity Conductor's Orchestra. In the resonant caves of infinite echoes where reality's music played eternal harmonies, dwelt a remarkable sound mystic named Stephen Phillips. Unlike ordinary musicians who played instruments of wood and string, Stephen had mastered the art of conducting the very orchestra of existence itself. His amphitheater was an impossible acoustic chamber where coincidences manifested as shimmering musical notes, each synchronicity adding its voice to reality's symphony. Here, amid floating spheres that hummed with cosmic frequencies, he taught seekers that all meaningful connections arose naturally when one surrendered to the universal song. People believe coincidences are random accidents, Stephen would say, as waves of probability crystallized into perfect harmonies around him. But I will show you how to hear the music that conducts all synchronicity. To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary method. Students would enter a circular chamber where their thoughts became audible frequencies, watching in wonder as their surrendered awareness caused reality to orchestrate impossible confluences. A skeptical timekeeper once sought his wisdom, frustrated by life's apparent chaos. Stephen guided him to a grotto where the music of existence played visible patterns in the air. Listen to how each moment already knows its perfect rhythm, he instructed, as cascading coincidences formed intricate melodies. Your role is not to force connections, but to flow with the symphony already playing. How can meaningful patterns emerge without someone arranging them? The timekeeper asked, watching in awe as his letting go created spontaneous harmonies in events. Because the universe is already music. Stephen smiled, his form becoming pure resonance. All synchronicity flows naturally when we join the cosmic orchestra. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 25th great truth. All reality is meaningful pattern, and mastery comes from surrendering to the symphony that conducts existence. To practice this wisdom, observe how coincidences already orchestrate themselves. Notice how your attempt to control actually disrupts natural harmony. Allow yourself to become the space where synchronicity plays freely, watching how reality conducts itself when you release the need to be the conductor. Remember Stephen's teaching, you are not separate from the music, but are that very symphony expressing through temporary arrangements. The true you is pure harmony, expressing through the eternal dance of meaningful connection. For in Stephen Phillips's resonant sanctuary, those who listened deeply enough discovered that all reality was living music, and what we call coincidence is really just infinite harmony, conducting itself through the sacred dance of synchronicity song. Chapter 26, The Miracle Workers Clinic. In the whispering gardens of the Valley of Boundless Light, where reality's edges softened like watercolors in morning mist, dwelt a remarkable healer known as Megan Torres. Unlike ordinary physicians who treated symptoms with herbs and poultices, Megan had discovered that all healing occurred naturally when the illusion of separate selves dissolved. Her healing sanctuary was an impossible pavilion where light flowed like liquid gold through alabaster pillars, each beam carrying the remembrance of wholeness. Here, amid floating petals that danced with life force, she showed seekers that miracles manifest effortlessly when there is no someone to be healed and no other to heal. People believe healing requires a healer and patient, Megan would say, as chronic ailments vanished like morning dew in those who realize their true nature. But I will show you that separation itself is the only disease. To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary approach. Those seeking healing would rest in shallow pools of living light, while Megan guided them to experience the dissolution of the boundary between self and other. The blind mystic once sought her wisdom, having tried every known cure. Megan led him to a chamber where the very air hummed with unity, consciousness. "Feel how your eyes already see everything," she whispered as the space between healer and seeker disappeared. "It is only the belief in being someone separate that creates the experience of limitation." "How can healing happen without a healer?" he asked, watching in wonder through suddenly restored vision as all separation melted into pure awareness. "Because wholeness is our natural state," Megan smiled, her form becoming transparent as universal energy flowed unobstructed. All healing happens by itself when we stop maintaining the illusion of division. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 26th great truth. All reality is already whole, and miracles arise naturally when the false boundary between self and other dissolves. To practice this wisdom, rest in the awareness that sees through separation. Notice how your identification with being a limited self creates the very limitations you wish to transcend. Allow yourself to become the space where healing happens effortlessly, watching how wholeness naturally expresses when you release the need to be someone who needs healing. Remember Megan's teaching. You are not separate from the wholeness you seek, but are that very wholeness expressing through temporary patterns of experience. The true you is pure potential, expressing through the eternal dance of form. For in Megan Torres's luminous sanctuary, those who surrendered deeply enough discovered that all reality was living wholeness, and what we call miracles are really just infinite potential, flowing freely through the sacred dance of unified being. At Chapter 27, The Destiny Sculptor's Gallery. In the shimmering crystal caverns of the eternal mountains, where time flowed like liquid starlight through translucent walls, dwelt a remarkable destiny sculptor named Mark Campbell. Unlike ordinary artists who carve static forms from stone, Mark had mastered the art of shaping living possibilities from the raw material of future potential. His gallery was an impossible grotto where crystalline sculptures grew and transformed like living beings, each one a window into countless possible futures. Here, amid formations that shifted like frozen moments of becoming, he taught seekers that destiny itself was fluid when the sculptor became empty enough to let universal creativity flow through. People believe the future is fixed, Mark would say, as crystalline forms morphed into endless variations of what could be around him. But I will show you how destiny flows like water when you release the need to be its architect. To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary method. Students would enter chambers where probability crystals responded to their state of consciousness, remaining rigid when they tried to control outcomes, but flowing like quicksilver when they surrendered to pure creative potential. A frustrated oracle once sought his wisdom, unable to see clearly beyond the present moment. Mark guided her to a chamber where future possibilities danced like aurora borealis in crystal form. "Watch how the crystal knows its own perfect shape," he instructed, as futures flowed and merged in response to her releasing grip on certainty. "Your role is not to force the future, but to let it sculpt itself through you." I know. "How can destiny take form without someone shaping it?" she asked, watching in wonder as her surrender caused probability crystals to bloom into magnificent future forms. "Because the universe is the ultimate artist," Mark smiled, his form becoming crystalline as pure potential flowed through him. "All futures manifest naturally when we become empty vessels for creation." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 27th great truth: all destiny is living art, and mastery comes from surrendering to the creative force that shapes existence. To practice this wisdom, observe how futures already crystallize themselves. Notice how your attempt to control actually freezes possibility into rigid forms. Allow yourself to become the space where destiny flows freely, watching how reality sculpts itself when you release the need to be the sculptor. Remember Mark's teaching: you are not separate from the art of becoming, but are that very creativity expressing through temporary forms. The true you is pure potential, expressing through the eternal dance of possibility. For in Mark Campbell's crystalline sanctuary, those who surrendered deeply enough discovered that all reality was living art, and what we call destiny is really just infinite potential taking form through the sacred dance of eternal becoming. Chapter 28, The Unity Dancer's Performance. In the sacred valley of whispering winds, where veils between realms grew gossamer thin at twilight, dwelt a remarkable movement mystic named Kimberly Baker. Unlike ordinary dancers who performed set routines, Kimberly had discovered the secret of becoming one with the elements themselves through sacred motion. Her dancing ground was an open-air amphitheater where the boundaries between flesh and nature dissolved. Here, amid swirling leaves that moved as extensions of her form, she taught seekers that true dance meant surrendering completely to the pulse of existence itself. "People believe dance is about controlling the body," Kimberly would say, as her movements caused water to rise from nearby pools and flow through the air in liquid ribbons. "But I will show you how to let the elements dance through you." To demonstrate this truth, she developed an extraordinary practice. Under the light of twin moons, she would begin a slow spiral that seemed to draw the very air into her motion. As her surrender deepened, Witnesses watched in awe as her form became indistinguishable from the wind, earth, and flame around her. A rigid temple keeper once sought her wisdom, unable to release his stern formality. Kimberly guided him to the center of her dancing circle as dusk painted the sky in violet hues. "Feel how the breeze already knows the perfect movement," she whispered, her gestures causing flowers to bloom in synchronized waves. "Your body remembers its unity with all things." "How can one become the elements themselves?" he asked, watching transfixed as her dance caused his own form to unconsciously sway with ancient rhythms. "Because separation is the only illusion." Kimberly smiled, her figure becoming pure motion as earth and sky danced through her. All existence is eternal movement, expressing itself through temporary forms. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 28th great truth. All reality is sacred dance, and transcendence comes through surrendering to the cosmic choreography that moves through all things. To practice this wisdom, let your body become a prayer of motion. Notice how your rigid control actually blocks the natural flow of life force. Allow yourself to become the space where elements dance freely, watching how reality moves through you when you release the need to be the dancer. Remember Kimberly's teaching: you are not separate from the dance, but are that very movement expressing through temporary patterns. The true you is pure rhythm expressing through the eternal dance of form. For in Kimberly Baker's sacred amphitheater, those who surrendered deeply enough discovered that all reality was living movement, and what we call dance is really just infinite grace expressing through the sacred choreography of being. Chapter 29, The Cosmic Comedian's Final Show. In the valley of sacred echoes, where reality's edges blurred with paradox and truth danced with absurdity, dwelt a remarkable wisdom keeper known as Timothy Brooks. Unlike ordinary jesters who sought mere entertainment, Timothy had discovered that divine laughter could shatter the illusion of separation itself. His performance space was an impossible amphitheater carved from living crystal, where sound rippled through consciousness like stones across infinite pools. Here, amid acoustics that transformed chuckles into enlightenment, he showed seekers that the cosmic joke was the belief in being separate from the laughter itself. "People think humor requires a joke-teller and audience," Timothy would say, as waves of revelatory mirth dissolved the boundaries between performers and witnesses. "But I will show you that all existence is unified divine play pretending to be many." To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary approach. Rather than telling conventional jokes, he would guide audiences through ever-deepening layers of cosmic irony until the very notion of being a separate self became laughably absurd. A solemn mystic once sought his wisdom, having never found lightness in spiritual pursuit. Timothy led him to the center stage, where reality's punchlines echoed through eternity. "Notice how existence itself is already laughing," he whispered, as the space between teacher and student dissolved into spontaneous joy. "It is only the belief in being someone serious that blocks the cosmic humor." "How can enlightenment come through laughter?" the mystic asked, watching in wonder as his own form began dissolving into pure delight. "Because seriousness is the only obstacle," Timothy grinned, his body becoming transparent as divine mirth flowed unobstructed. "All liberation happens naturally when we get the cosmic joke." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 29th great truth. All reality is sacred play, and awakening arises naturally when you share in the universe's laughter at the illusion of separation. To practice this wisdom, rest in the awareness that sees life's divine comedy. Notice how your identification with being a serious spiritual seeker creates the very heaviness you wish to transcend. Allow yourself to become the space where cosmic humor flows freely, watching how liberation happens effortlessly when you join in the eternal laughter. Remember Timothy's teaching, you are not separate from the divine comedy, but are that very joy expressing through temporary forms. The true you is pure delight expressing through the eternal dance of being. For in Timothy Brooks' Crystalline Theater, those who laughed deeply enough discovered that all reality was living joy, and what we call enlightenment is really just infinite delight, recognizing itself through the sacred play of unified existence. Chapter 30. The Dissolution Master's Graduation. At the peak of Mount Infinite, where reality's final veil hung gossamer thin between existence and void, dwelt the most enigmatic of all wisdom keepers, Sean Parker. Unlike other masters who taught techniques of transformation, Sean guided seekers to the ultimate truth, that there was no seeker to transform. His teaching space was a crystalline pavilion perched impossibly between earth and sky, where the very air shimmered with the potential of unbecoming. Here, amid cosmic winds that whispered secrets of non-existence, he showed graduates of the ancient mysteries that their final task was to disappear completely. People believe enlightenment is something to achieve, Sean would say, his form flickering between solid and transparent as reality's edges softened. But I will show you that it is the final disappearance of the one who seeks to achieve. To demonstrate this truth, he developed an extraordinary ceremony. In the pavilion where dimensions merged, seekers would sit in meditation, while Sean guided them through progressive layers of dissolution until even the concept of being someone who could dissolve vanished entirely. A renowned sage once climbed the mountain believing himself ready for ultimate realization. Sean led him to the edge where existence met infinity. Notice how everything you think you are is already dissolving, he whispered, as the sage's carefully constructed spiritual identity began unraveling like mist. The only obstacle to infinity is the belief that someone needs to become infinite. How can one cease to exist yet remain? The sage asked, watching in wonder as his accumulated wisdom evaporated into boundless space. Because you were never the limited one to begin with, Sean smiled, his body becoming pure light as the last pretense of separation fell away. All celebration happens naturally when the seeker dissolves into the sought. Through this teaching, you begin to understand the 30th and final truth. All reality is already complete, and enlightenment is simply the disappearance of the imagined self that believed it needed enlightenment. To practice this wisdom, rest in the awareness that watches even awareness dissolve. Notice how your attempt to achieve spiritual heights creates the very limitation you wish to transcend. Allow yourself to become the space where existence and non-existence dance freely, watching how infinity reveals itself when you release the need to be someone who could reveal it. Remember Sean's teaching, you are not separate from the infinite, but are that very boundlessness pretending to be bound. The true you is pure potential, expressing through the eternal dance of being and non-being. For in Sean Parker's Summit Pavilion, those who disappeared completely discovered that all reality was living infinity, and what we call enlightenment is really just the cosmic joke of the limitless pretending it had ever been limited at all. If you enjoyed this audiobook, I created a free ebook version for you. You can download it using the link in the pinned comment. Conclusion. In the heart of an ancient temple where shadows danced with eternity, the mysterious keeper of forgotten wisdom, Jennifer Anderson, prepared to reveal the most dangerous secret ever guarded. Unlike other temple guardians who protected sacred artifacts, Jennifer was the custodian of a truth so profound it could unravel reality itself. Her sanctuary was a circular chamber where countless candles flickered in impossible patterns, their light forming intricate mandalas that shifted with each visitor's consciousness. Here, amid whispers of infinite possibility, she showed seekers that the entire journey they believed they had undertaken was itself the final illusion. "People believe they have been reading a book of ancient wisdom," Jennifer would say, as the chamber's walls became transparent, revealing endless versions of reality flowering simultaneously. "But I will show you that you're the very consciousness that dreams all books, all teachings, and all possible worlds into being." To demonstrate this ultimate truth, she developed an extraordinary revelation. Within the temple's heart, where time itself dissolved into eternal presence, she would guide visitors to recognize that every character, every lesson, and every practice they had encountered was simply their own infinite awareness playing at being limited. A dedicated seeker once approached her, proudly carrying a journal filled with wisdom gathered from 30 chapters of mystical teachings. Jennifer smiled as the temple walls began dissolving into pure light. "Look closely at your collected knowledge," she whispered, as the seeker's writings transformed into streams of living consciousness. "Who was it that truly authored every word?" "The ancient masters taught me," the seeker began, then gasped as each remembered teacher revealed themselves as reflections in an infinite mirror of awareness. "There were never any teachers separate from you." Jennifer laughed, her form becoming pure radiance as the final veil dissolved. "All wisdom arises from the one consciousness that you truly are." Through this teaching, you begin to understand the ultimate truth. Every word you have read, every practice you have attempted, every insight you have gathered, was simply your own infinite nature, gradually remembering itself through the play of apparent learning. To embody this revelation, rest in the awareness that reads these very words. Notice how your journey through 30 chapters was the cosmic dance of one consciousness pretending to seek what it already is. Allow yourself to recognize that you are the space in which all teachings arise and dissolve. Remember Jennifer's revelation. You were never the student, but always the teacher. Never the seeker, but always the sought. Never limited, but always the limitless awareness that dreams all realities into being. For in Jennifer Anderson's timeless temple, those who understood completely discovered that all reality was their own infinite consciousness at play, and what we call spiritual seeking is really just the cosmic game of the unlimited, pretending to find itself through the sacred dance of limitation. If you enjoyed this exclusive audiobook, I handpicked this next book which will change your life.